Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today I'm going to do a review on American Journey Artist Watercolor Sticks, and I've got a set of 24 colors here that I'm going to review today. These are by the American Journey Joe Miller brand from Cheap Joe's, and I was curious about these because I have recently purchased a couple of Daniel Smith watercolor sticks, and I was really impressed with them because you're able to get a lot of pigment for a lot less than their tube paint. So I was wondering if that was the same situation with other brands of watercolor sticks versus the watercolor crayons that you may be familiar with from other companies. So I just played around a little bit with the American Journey sticks here in my Strathmore Windpower journal, which I'm really enjoying. It's very inexpensive, so I like kind of playing on that. I don't have to worry about messing up paper. I've swatched out some colors. Here you can see I scribbled out the color and then brushed water over it. Not my favorite technique with these, but picking up the color directly with a brush from the pan, from the stick, I really liked, because then you get more of a beautiful watercolor effect. It behaves much more like a regular tube watercolor, and you get lovely granulation and subtleties that each pigments are known for. The thing I like about these crayons is that they list what pigments are in them, whereas my Caran d'Ache and Lyra watercolor crayons do not. So that's really helpful to know what you're buying. And these are just a few little sketches that I did in my book to kind of play with these and experiment with them and see what I think. And we're going to do a little demo today. And I'm also going to kind of tell you, or I guess show you, what I think the differences are between a bunch of these different products and whether you need to invest in another product. So first thing I'm going to do is a little sketch, and I'm actually going to first demonstrate sketching with these. And I'll put a link in the video description to these. This set of 24 retails for about $111, and they are an exclusive product to Cheap Joe's. It's one of their house brands. I'm going to start by putting in the center of a flower. And the thing that I like about these crayons is that you can actually sketch with them. The Daniel Smith ones didn't sketch very well. They were kind of gummy, and I'll show you in a minute what I mean by that. I'm just throwing in some, like, I think this is like a little coreopsis, or it's not an echinacea because it doesn't have a big enough center. It's just like a little pinked edge, almost daisy type flower. I'm being fairly expressive with my sketch. I don't want to get too fussy with it. And I'm going to do a little bud. I think I'll do a couple little buds, maybe one over here, one over here. I like that I can be really expressive with my strokes. And it works out pretty well. So you have the ability of almost like a watercolor pencil here, which I think is really nice. And let's get a little bit of yellow inside here. Now, the first difference that I find between these and other watercolor crayons that I have is that these are transparent unless there's something in the pigment makeup that makes them opaque, like if it has pigment white 6 in it, like this. This color here, it's going to be opaque, but all the other colors are transparent. Anything that doesn't have a white in it, or that isn't a opaque pigment rather, is going to show up as a transparent. The wax that binds this, it's not just gum arabic. Like, I think the Daniel Smith sticks are just like gum arabic, just like a pan of watercolor paint. The binder in this is completely clear, so you're not going to get like a chalky haze or anything like that, which I think is kind of fun. And then what I did when I actually got these, and you'll actually want to put a kind of a cloth over them when you do that, otherwise you'll fling some pigment, is I just actually sliced off the end of each of these and put it in this little divot in my palette here in the storage that it came in, and that way I have a little pan of watercolor. When I did that one first, and I didn't have a paper towel over where I was cutting, I was just cutting it on a little ceramic tile, and the piece of pigment flung off. I haven't found it yet, but I felt bad that I wasted that bit of pigment, but I just sliced a bit off. And these have a protective wax coating, so you don't get your hands all yucky. I probably should have scraped that off before I put them in here, but I'm just gonna see what happens as I use them down. But it's kind of nice, keeps your fingers clean. But I just thought I would tell you that in case you pick it up and you're like maybe coloring with the wrong end and no pigment is coming out. So I'm going to grab just a regular round watercolor brush. Now, the first thing that I was kind of disappointed in was after I colored and I went to wet the the area, I didn't feel like there was a really big color payoff. I was like, oh, that's too bad. I thought there'd be way more color, because if I was doing this with a Caran d'Ache crayon or even my Lyric crayon, I would have a lot more color kind of bursting forth. But then I realized that it kind of helps me make a more sophisticated looking sketch, because I can go to my palette over here, right, and I can wet my brush and just put it up against that little slice of color, and then I can get a really nice color load that way. I'm using a very soft brush, so I'm not going to get, I'm getting a lot of water in there. I'll have to let my brush dry out a little bit. But I found that I could control it a lot, and I didn't end up with too much pigment as I was painting and sketching. So it actually ended up being kind of nice, because it makes it a little different than the stuff I already have, and makes it a little bit more versatile. So I'm just going in and throwing in some shadows here. There's a lot of really nice colors in this set of 24. I think there's something like 50 or 60 colors total in this line. I'm going to try that really pastel purple. We'll see what that looks like. So, you know, it could be a way to, you know, to try out some of the colors if you're thinking about investing in the American Journey watercolors. And I believe the American Journey watercolors are made by Da Vinci, and I have not used the American Journey watercolors, but I have used the Da Vinci, and I really like those. I used to use them a lot because they came in huge tubes. They were like one of the only manufacturers that would come out with 37 milliliter tubes of watercolor. And as a teacher, it's really helpful to be able to get you know, bulk supplies at a reasonable price. So that's how I know that brand. And let's grab a little sap green. The pigments in the colors are what you would come to expect from an artist's product. I think they're very versatile. If you wanted to have the versatility of like a watercolor pencil and watercolor paints together, I think that's the best reason to get these, because, and especially with the storage, because you can keep it kind of like that. If you're ordering the crayons open stock, though, I don't know what they come in. If they come in like a little, like when I got my Daniel Smith sticks, they came in this little, which I've kind of I've totally disheveled it, but it comes with this like little foam divided thing for you to keep them in. I actually cut off big pieces and put them into full pans just so I would have that, but it just kind of made it a little more versatile. Now if I wanted to go in and I'm like, oh, you know what, I wish I had that veining on those, I can go in with my stick here and draw them in. Now if you want to sharpen these, I would highly recommend sharpening them and putting the shavings right into your little pans here, making yourself, you know, your little pan of color, because there's no reason that any of that has to go to waste. It's completely usable stuff. And that's another thing that's kind of nice over a watercolor pencil, is that this is all usable. You're not throwing away shavings, you're not you know, wasting. Every bit of this is usable. The paint doesn't beat up on the palette. I'll show you here. I'll mix some color and show you what I mean. So if I have this plastic, and I haven't done anything to prepare it or treat it or anything, but let's say I want to have a brighter purple. So I take that. I can easily see what I'm mixing. It's not beating up on me. I can spread it out. And you've got the lid. These came stacked up with one lid. I think if you ordered like a set of 12, you get a lid and the set of 12, but then you've got all this room to mix too if you want, which is also really nice. Oh, that's a pretty color. This one thing I really wanted to mention, if you do have some Caran d'Ache crayons and you're like, well, this looks like the same thing, because they are similar, is that I would recommend, if you're in that situation, try some of the reds, because I've had a problem with like Lyra and Caran d'Ache and other watercolor crayons and like watercolor, water-soluble pastels, is that I can't find a good red. The reds are all very milky and muted and just dull, and the reds are super vibrant in this line. I'm really impressed with the reds. Red's my favorite color anyway, so I kind of will look at some, you know, paints and be like, okay, how's the red? The reds are really impressive. Yellows are nice too. The yellows are still transparent. A lot of times you get yellows and reds too for that matter, in like a dry medium in it, and they'll be very opaque, but that's not the case here. Really strong colors, I like that. Much different from the Daniel Smith sticks in the fact that that you can draw with them. The Daniel Smith ones just aren't very good for drawing. I think they're a fantastic product because you can save a lot of money versus versus buying tubes. So let me just show you here. I'll show you right here on this because this is just in my practice. So this is a Daniel Smith stick right here. It's not the best for drawing. You see it kind of like is kind of gummy. It doesn't want to lay down a solid, like if I was trying to draw a leaf. I guess I could probably draw a leaf if I really press down, but it feels really draggy. And then if I grab the Daniel Smith is much creamier. And if I grab a Caran d'Ache, I do have a big set of Caran d'Ache. I love these because I actually prefer to use these on like an opaque product, but it's like that's even more creamier. Let's get that leaf in there. And let's just show you, let me just add a little bit of coloring just into them so you can see. Like that's really dry and scratchy feeling, but that's not what I didn't buy them as a drawing medium, so I'm not really that upset about it. So we've got our colors in there, and granted I'm using a pretty soft brush, but if I go in there, like I go into the Daniel Smith, it's definitely, it didn't deposit much color from drawing. That's not what it's really intended for. The color's pretty, but if I pick this up from the stick, I get a much better result. It's like working from a pan of color. And since Daniel Smith doesn't offer their stuff in pans, I found that to be really nice. So see how different that is. And I found that same attribute in the American Journey colors. So if I go over that, I'm not getting a big wow payoff. I can liquefy this color, but it's still not, you know, knocking my socks off. But then if I go to like the piece that I shaved off into my palette here, I get really rich color. It flows pretty well. It doesn't flow quite as well as like the Daniel Smith sticks or as my traditional watercolor, but it's definitely workable and nice. Now these, I think it's probably because of the paraffin binder in them, they do lift more. So I'll show you on my first demonstration here. I lifted that right away with very little effort. So I mean, if you do want to be able to lift your colors, it's a great option. Now this is the Caran d'Ache one. Great color payoff in the Caran d'Ache, but it is more of a muted color. They all have kind of a milky tone to them, and I think it's just because of the binder that they use is really opaque. It's like almost like a gouache-like binder. So the color's strong, but you're gonna have that milky undertone, and it's more apparent if you're working on a dark paper. But you kind of need that if you're gonna work on on a dark paper. So if I do this watercolor crayon here, the Caran d'Ache, you can see how lovely and opaque. Even that's probably not the best color to demonstrate because it's really just kind of a dull dark color. Anyway, let's try with this lavender here. Of the Caran d'Ache, you can see how uniform and thick and smooth that color is. This one's going to be opaque because it is an opaque pigment. It's pretty smooth, but if I did this this more transparent purple next to it, you can't really see it because it just shows up. All you see is the black underneath. I mean, I could blend that in there and get a pretty blend and darken that up and stuff, but you know, these are transparent sticks. A Caran d'Ache are opaque sticks. It just depends on really what you're looking for. And so I find these a little more similar to the Daniel Smith ones, except for the fact that you can actually draw with them. And this is a color line that I have, and this was given to me from Cheap Joe's because I was curious on the product, and I was really impressed. I loved how some of these colors granulated. Now you can look at each stick individually and pick ones that are single pigment if you want to. The sets of course are going to come with a variety. I love that red. I love that red and this violety red. I mean, they're so super intense and transparent, but these colors were achieved by wetting my brush and dipping it into the slices that I took off of the crayons. When you're drawing with the crayons, you're going to get much more of a watercolor pencil effect, which I think is kind of nice because then you have that versatility. So I just wanted to put this out there. You know, if you have the Caran d'Ache sticks, if you have a lot of watercolor pencils and watercolors, it might not make sense to get these, but if you want something that's going to do it all, that's going to be a watercolor and also a drawing medium, it's a great option. And they're pretty well priced if you consider what 24 tubes of watercolor would cost versus the 24 sticks for $111. This is going to be cheaper. The fact that you are getting some paraffin binder in there, making them less able to glaze. You can glaze with them, but they are much more likely to lift. It's just something you gotta figure out if that's worth it for you or not. I think they're a fantastic product. They actually impressed me more than I thought they would. They did what I wanted them to do. I just wanted to show you here the Lyra and Caran d'Ache crayons and the American Journey on black. There, you know, you can see some. I picked out the colors that I thought would be the more opaque for the American Journey, and there you can see them on the black, but honestly I wouldn't buy these to do work on like colored mat board or colored paper. I definitely would use my Caran d'Ache, my Lyra crayons if I was going to do that. But for using watercolor techniques on watercolor paper to be able to sketch with them, I think they're a fantastic product for that. So I hope you found that helpful. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave them in the video description and I'll help you out if I can. Thank you so much for watching. Please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. And until next time, happy crafting.